is 64 years old. He was born on December 26, 1945. My name is Gwillim, and I will be the interviewer. Ross is my friend. Ross, could you state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in?
I served in the U.S. Navy in the Vietnam Era War.
What was your rank?
When I got out, I was an E5, a second-class petty officer.
Where did you serve?
I started out in boot camp in the Great Lakes, and from there I went to radio school in Bainbridge, Maryland, and from there I went to the USS Valley Forge. From there, Naval Communication Station Guam, and then back to the USS Hooper.
How many years were you in the service?
5 years.
So you served in the Navy. Where were you living at the time?
When I enlisted, I was living here in Wabash.
What were you doing before you were enlisted?
After graduating from high school, I went to the Farm Bureau Lumberyard, was working in the lumber company.
Did anyone else in your family serve in the military?
Yes, they did. My brother, he's a retired Marine after 20-some years of service.
Can you tell me about adapting to military life?
Well, in boot camp, it was quite a change because you're used to coming and going as you would like, and when you get to boot camp, it's altogether taking orders and doing everything in a complete routine. They were just transitioning you from civilian life to military life. You had to learn to take orders and do what they said.
How was the food?
The food was great. Three meals a day. When I went in, I weighed 155 pounds. When I graduated from boot camp, I weighed 180 something.
How did you choose the branch of service you served in?
Originally, I went to Marion to join the Marine Corps because my brother was a career Marine officer, and they were quite busy talking to other people, trying to enlist them. And I seen the Navy recruiter across the hallway, so I went over and talked to him, and he convinced me that was the thing to do.
What kind of training did you have during the time?
Well, in boot camp, they train you with just about everything. A little bit of firefighting, a little bit of just shipboard life, and after I graduated from boot camp, like I said, I went to radio school in Bainbridge, Maryland, and I graduated from Radio A school, and then later I done 2 or 3 other classes on firefighting, and then they sent me back to an instructor's training school so I could be an instructor on either radio or fire prevention or fire protection.
Were there any friendships formed?
Oh yeah, you got to know a lot of different people, but you came and went so much. I mean, you know, like you would be on the ship, like I was on the ship for a number of months, and of course you got to know them quite well, but once you got transferred to another ship, you just got new friends and new things, and it was hard to keep track of everybody.
Do you have medals?
Yes, I do. I have, of course, are you focused in? Of course, the Vietnam Vietnam Campaign Medal. Vietnam Expeditionary Medal, National Defense Medal, and this is one I'm pretty proud of, the Good Conduct Medal. You have to serve at least 4 years and have no problems, no nothing, be just in good standings. So to receive the Good Conduct Medal, that was quite. And these certificates here, I'll just hold them up. Of course, they're just the Department of Navy. That was my instructor training. And this is just an honorable discharge. This is what you go in for, and this is what you work for. An honorable discharge from the Navy.
Where did you serve?
Well, like I said before, the boot camp was Great Lakes, and then Bainbridge, and then when I went to Long Beach the first time is where what they call the home port. When I went on the USS Valley Forge, I do have a picture of the Valley Forge. It's an amphibious landing ship.
Okay.
And then I went to, this is just a book on Guam. I was stationed over there for 18 months, served in the Naval Communication Station, Guam. I worked in an office which they called traffic analysis. By being a radioman, back then we done most of our communications by like teletype or by well, it'd be like telegraph with the Morse code, and of course voice. But when I was stationed in Guam, I done like I said, I worked in traffic analysis, and if messages were sent, they wanted to know how come they were not proceeded or taken care of right away, how long it took to send them, and also if one of them had happened to be lost, I'd have to figure out why.
How did you stay in touch with those back home?
Well, back then we didn't have cell phones and things like that. We didn't, we had to communicate by letters. One thing about being in a combat zone when I was in Vietnam, all of our letters were sent free. You would do your letter just like you would normally, address it and everything, and where you'd put your stamp up in the right hand top corner, you wrote free, and your letters went right on.
Did you have actions or duties away from the front line?
Well, yeah, I wasn't on the front line except for 13 months, and while I was there, of course, you didn't have time to do things other than just your common everyday duties and things, but to get any time off, whenever you got time off, you'd sleep. They called it back then, they called it port and starboard. You was either on for 12 hours and you were off for 12 hours. Well, the 12 hours that you were off, you done shipboard duties like swabbing the decks, cleaning things. That was just things that had to be done, and when you were on duty, you performed your radio communications and everything like that.
What did you do for recreation?
We didn't have any recreation time when we was in the combat zone, but when we were overseas, we hit different home ports, which were quite impressive. We got into Japan and got into Okinawa, the many other home ports, but
Were you still overseas when the war ended?
when I got out, the war was still going on. Back then, the Vietnam War wasn't be called a war; it was called a conflict. They never did, state it as a war.
How did you return home?
Well, when I got out back in '69, I was on the USS Hooper. I got a small picture of that one too. This one here was a destroyer escort. And like I said, the other one, the Valley Forge, was an LPH, which was an amphibious landing ship. Well, anyway, when I was due to be discharged, we were in Long Beach, California, and back then they went through a thing they called Project Transition, where they would have different companies come in and talk to you about transferring from military life to civilian life, and but of course they were offering you jobs and things like that. There was plenty of jobs back in then, but I decided that Indiana was my home and I wanted to return back to Indiana, so we came back, and I ended up, well, originally when I went in the Navy, I went in thinking that I was going to do a 20-year tour. I wanted something that I could depend on and work at. Well, after 20 years of service in the military, you can retire, and my wife didn't really like me being gone all the time. The Navy's pretty mobile, but when I returned home, I looked around for a job that I could do the same thing, that had a retirement after 20 years or 25 years, and I went on to the city of Wabash, the fire department, and finished my training and everything there.
Did you have a reception by family or by your community?
Family only. Back then, the Vietnam era people were not thought of quite as highly as they are now. The people that return from a combat zone. And the reason I think that most of these people that are coming back now get such high praise and everything is because those are our children and our grandchildren that are returning, and we don't want them treated like we were when we came back from Vietnam.
How hard was it to return to civilian life?
It was about the same way as when you joined. It was quite a transition. After 5 years of having everything pretty much right there, and 3 square meals a day and whatever, you kind of get used to having all that. And when you get out, you're back to working for a paycheck. You have to go to work, have a job, and take care of your family. It was quite a transition.
Are you a member of any veterans organization?
Sure am. I'm a member of the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and then the American Legion.
Do you have any contact with fellow veterans?
I have a lot of contacts with a lot of different veterans. I worked my way up through the ranks in the American Legion, and I was in my local post, which is the Thomas Steinman post here in Wabash, post 15. I worked my way up through all the ranks there, became their commander, and then I went to the district and worked for the different, what they call chairs, worked my way up through that and to 5th District Commander, and then I was slated to be State Commander in 2001, and they done some changing, and they decided that they would do this, that I would go ahead with it later in life.
How has being in the military affected your life?
I think when you go into the service, you grow up quite quickly. You, like I say, you were used to not a lot of things that you had to do. So of course you learned to take orders, and in my case I learned leadership, which went on to, when I got out and went on to the fire department there in Wabash, just continuing to help and the people in the Wabash, or in the community and city and county.
Were there any lessons learned during any part of it?
Well, yes, like I say, you learn leadership, you learn to take orders, you learned you learn to be reliable. I don't know, just a number of different things. You just grew up.
Okay, is there any other things you would like to share?
Well, getting back to some of the other, or a little bit of the other, you asked me if I stayed in touch one time with, the people that I had met while I was in the service. Well, we still continue to this day to communicate with some people that we met. They were originally from Montana, and when he got out of the service, they went back to Wyoming, and we communicated back and forth then. Now they're retired and live in Missouri, and we still keep in contact with them.
Do you have anything else you would like to show?
Well, I've got a couple. I mean, just like the pictures and things. This is when you're in boot camp. You get like a yearbook, like you girls do when you graduate from high school. And this was the same deal. They done a yearbook while we were in the service, and I guess that's just about everything that I kind of brought there.
Would you like me to read your poem?
And you can read the poem, and then I've got a couple other things on the veterans that I'd like to share.
It is called Mommy, What's a Veteran? Mommy, what is a veteran? My child asked in an innocent way. And could you please explain to me why we have a Veterans Day? My mind searched for the adjectives that might help me clarify those people who, for their country, have looked death in the eye. I quickly grabbed the dictionary to see what Webster may have used, but one who served in the armed forces were not the words that I would choose. But how do you describe a veteran? Heroes you've never met, those you'll never know the names of and yet will never forget? How do you describe a veteran? How do you convey a definition for those who brought this country's dreams to their ultimate fruition? How do you describe a veteran? Strangers who fought for you, men and women who risked their lives for people they never knew. How do you describe a veteran and the sacrifices they made so that you and your children's children could live free and unafraid? How do you describe a veteran for a child's sake? You say a veteran is a person whom we owe every breath we take.
Very good. There's many definitions of a veteran. The one that the government wants is that they served for at least 180 days, which is 24 months. Doesn't mean that they had to be in a combat zone, and it just says that they had to serve in the service for 180 days. And of course, you know, they have different. This is just a little thing that I thought was really pretty cool myself. It says, "It is a veteran, not the preacher, who has given freedom of religion. It is a veteran, not a reporter, who has given freedom of press. It is a veteran, not a poet, who has given freedom to speech. It is a veteran, not a campus organizer, who has given freedom to assemble. It is a veteran, not a lawyer, who has given the right for free trial. And it is a veteran, not a politician, who has given the right to vote." I thought that was pretty neat. The different veterans organizations, like the American Legion, VFW, AMVETS, different ones, they're there to help the veteran that has returned, you know, from a combat zone, or right now they're having quite a deal with the ones that come back from Desert Storm, and they call it PTSD, post-stress syndrome disorder. Anybody that's ever been in a combat zone is going to have PTSD to a certain extent. It just depends on how they handle it, the situation. The American Legion was formed back in 1919 of World War I veterans that came back, and they knew that they needed a group that they could get together and that would serve, you know, that would help the veterans. And also the veterans have a vote in what goes on in Congress. I mean, you know, they have a say. Not necessarily that it's going to happen, but they do have the choice of expressing their opinion there. I think I got a little bit ahead of myself on part of that, but like I said earlier, you know, also that, well, all the wars, the World War I, World War II, the Korean, Vietnam, but the Vietnam War, not just because I was in it, it was a very unpopular conflict situation. The veterans that returned from that era were not treated exceptionally well, but that's why the American Legion and the VFW and they are there to help anybody that's got these problems. Or else they'll find somebody that can help them through the Veterans Administration or whichever kind of help they need. Are you have you gone through what you wanted to? Do you have anything that you'd like to add or anything?
Not really, but I wanted to thank you for serving in the military for us, and we really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I think that's really great. I got one other little thing to add. When you said that, you can always tell, like in a parade or something like that, you can always tell a veteran, because when the flag goes by, he always will stand up and put his hand over his heart, or if he's got a uniform and wearing a hat of any kind, he will salute. It's not too hard to pick out a veteran. Okay.